carry on. Yeah, so over to Irving then for Gorillas in the Mist, which I'm really excited about.
Okay, well, I'm going to mute everybody and then share my screen with you, see if that's all right. So if you want to come in and ask questions as we go along, that's fine also. Just press your space bar and then you can unmute yourself temporarily. So I'll do that now. Right, okay, that's that done. I better. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. I'm assuming everybody can see that now, can they? Okay, Gorillas in the Mist. Well, it's a take on a book that's written by Diane Fossey, who's a great lady, American, a journalist who went out and brought to the attention of us the gorillas' plight. So over the years, the reason for this presentation is, over the years, Pam and I have tried to see all of our wonderful large animals in their natural habitat. From sperm whales north of Iceland, polar bears in Churchill, Canada, tigers in India, many others in Africa, but we still have to see orangutans, jaguars, and puma. All of these, our favorite animals have been the mountain gorillas in Rwanda. They're so human-like and share 98% of our DNA. So a little bit more advanced than acorn worms, who also share 70% of our DNA. This is the mountain gorilla chewing on his favorite food, wild celery. They also eat roots, shoots, fruit, tree bark, and pulp. And humans if you get annoyed with them. Mountain gorillas can only be found in the mountains of Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo. Of all of these places, Rwanda is the most accessible as far as walking is concerned, and also the safest as far as the country is concerned. But it's quite a trek to get there. First, a 9-hour flight to Nairobi in Kenya, and then a 2-hour flight to Kigali, the capital of Rwanda, shown here, the small country to the southwest of Kenya. Kigali is the almost center of the country, and Parc National des Volcans is in the northwest of the country, where we would trek the mountain gorillas. This is our transport for the week in an old Jeep. We were ably looked after by our guard Patrick, who spoke excellent English, French, German, and Italian, and was most knowledgeable about his country. A fantastic chap. One of his ambitions was to come to the UK. Kigali is a misty, busy, colourful city with many hills and valleys, rich and poor. Much like many other African cities, but nevertheless very clean, no litter, which you'll be pleased to hear. Once a month, everybody has to litter pick, including the president himself. Here we are outside Hotel des Mille Collines of TV series fame, Hotel Rwanda. You probably remember that series. 1,000 people took refuge there in Rwandan genocide of 1994. 100 days of bloodshed. This was genocide between two groups, the Tutsis and the Hutus. It's hard to believe that it's not that many years ago that this sort of thing happened, and about 800,000 people were slaughtered during that 3-month period. It sort of puts into perspective the 118,000 people that have died in our own country in the last year. So quite horrific. But we had a lovely lunch in this hotel, and it's beautiful gardens there as well. As you can see, there's also a township in Kigali, as you would expect in any African city, housing the poor of the population. We didn't actually go into the township, but we sort of skirted around it. I'll leave this about the genocide. We did actually visit the Rwandan Genocide Museum, but it was so horrific. And we came out, Pam and I left that museum bewildered and upset. But these are just some facts of what happened with it. I'll leave that up there for a little while for you to read. There's just been a little bit in the news about it just this last few weeks. Apparently the French had a bit of a hand in all this genocide, and they sort of took in some of the leaders when really they should have been putting them in front of the Hague court. So we had a 3-hour drive up to the Parc National through beautiful countryside and wonderful sights to see. And we had our driver, Patrick, was an excellent driver and talked us all the way through. So we learned an awful lot about the countryside.
To keep us from falling asleep.
Yeah, keep you from falling asleep. Yeah, but as you can see, there's this is the transport, basically bicycles and Paddy's foot. Most people are carrying stuff. The 2 large bags on the bike, they're potatoes. And of interest is a lady drying pyrethrum. These are flower heads, which when processed is a direct contact insecticide. It has to be sprayed directly on the pest insect to be effective. And there's also a broad spectrum insecticide. And that's one of their exports is this insecticide, which is a natural product. So on to our lodge, the Mountain Gorilla View Lodge. Very basic but comfortable. Food was excellent, and entertainment for the evening was the indoor dancers. Some very fit young lads and ladies. They couldn't half wiggle their bottoms. And in the background, you can see the mountains, which are ex-volcanoes, which we will visit. And a beautiful sunrise there. We had to be up early every morning, so that was a downside. But the weather's beautiful, and the sunrise was absolutely majestic. Karsimbi is the mountain we'll be visiting to see Diana Foss's camp and grave. You may remember she was the one person who brought the plight of the mountain gorillas to the attention of the world. An American journalist who came and lived with the gorillas for quite a period. We met Francois, our guide, who happened to also be a porter for Diane Fossey while she was alive. It was quite a 4-mile track uphill to Diane Fossey's grave. She was an American who studied gorillas from 1966 until she was murdered in 1985. Because she was fighting against all the corruption and what have you, and people selling gorillas, and they were killing poachers, killing gorillas to chop the hands off to use for ashtrays. Quite horrific, really. But she was murdered because she supported the conservation and developed bond with gorillas, her favourite being Digit. She established a fund to raise millions of pounds to protect them, organised a defence league, and put herself in danger, and it cost her life. She was buried next to them at her camp. It was a 3-hour challenging climb upwards with the help of porters who, for 50 pence, carried our backpacks and helped us over the rocks, walls and streams, some of which were very slippy. On the way back from the camp, this was an unscheduled sighting of a group of gorillas. You pay a huge fee for going out trekking with gorillas, so we're very lucky to have this group wander unexpectedly in front of us on the way back from Diane Fossey's camp. Our first tearful sighting of a gorilla in the wild.
Made me cry seeing them just like that in the wild. And our guide, he said we weren't supposed to be seeing them, and I was taking lots of photos, and he said, no, we haven't paid to see them. which is really funny, well, bizarre, you know, because they're just where they should be.
Local kids here waving at us out of our Jeep, all smiles. Gorilla trekking helps the local Rwandan government educate the kids, so it's good to see our visit was helping the next generation come along. They're all in westernized clothes, as you can see, some of them not quite fitting properly, but lovely kids. And here's some of the domesticated cattle that they have, and for the milk and what have you. Quite a crowded little classroom here. It was just a little hovel, but all the kids enjoying themselves, and the teacher who was helping them out. And here's a lady picking potatoes. Most of the people working in the fields were ladies, of course. The men just sat around, you know, contemplating infinity, but that's how it is in Africa. So here we are, Francois again, relating his time as a porter with Diana Fossey. Most interesting chap. And he could imitate the gorillas' sounds quite remarkably. In the background, you see the trackers who've been up since 4 AM locating the group of gorillas we're about to visit. Gorillas, they move overnight and during the day can move up to 3 or 4 miles to find a new place to rest, form a nest and eat and find new vegetation. And our trusty porters here, beside we're taking a photograph with us, as I said, for 50 pence, they would carry all your gear for us, so which was a real boon, and it's helping the local economy as well. The wall you can see there, it's to keep domesticated animals out and not the gorillas in. Up at 5:30 AM, had to go to a centre where we congregated with the people who are doing the visits during the course of the day. And we were allocated a guide and 6 noisy South Korean fellow trekkers. These South Koreans were a bit of a pain in the butt because they had huge great cameras and they never minded just walking in front of you while you were trying to photograph something. So quite bolshy people, but they were nice enough, but just a bit bolshy. We had a bumpy ride in the Jeep up 9,000 feet towards the mountains. We trekked through bamboos, nettles and other vegetations. And on the way we saw water buffalo, bush buck deer, and we had to meet the Amaoro gorilla group. There were 10 in this group, led by a silverback male with silver fur on backs, hips. When mature, these are about 12 years old, a bit like us with grey hair. He's in charge of everything, scheduling the feeding, trips, resting time and travel. Sorry, I skipped one there. And this is how close we got. This is one of the younger females. You see there, this is how the youngsters get about with the mums. Mostly they cling underneath the mother's belly as they walk around on all fours. But here's one on the back. And this is a silverback on the right, bottom right, looking on and just making sure that everybody's safe. There's only so many groups of these gorilla groups that's habituated. The other groups that there are, only the park rangers and what have you visit them. They're not for general public to see. So you get to see how close they are. And there's the silverback on the right there. You can't see it, you can see a silverback in the bottom right picture as well.
We were instructed onto how to approach. We were so many meters away from them, you couldn't go too close to them. But if they came towards you, you just had to stand still, didn't you, Irvin?
Yep.
You can see where that one's walking past your legs, but you hadn't got to move. You just had to stay and let them do what they wished, because they weren't going to hurt you unless you tried to attack them or do something suddenly. So you just stood still, but it was amazing.
Oops. Sorry, I've clicked through on there. A gorilla group creates a nest each night and they can travel 3 or 4 miles to find new feeding spots where they can rest, as well as the youngsters there play nibble and play, and the grown-ups feed and then have a rest, have a nap. 40 winks, as we call it. This is why you need trackers to find the groups, because they aren't where the visitors left them the day before. They've probably moved on 3 or 4 miles. It's all very efficient. They use radios to keep in touch, and it means that the guides that's with you can walk you straight to the where they're resting or feeding, what have you. There's the silverback coming right past me. We were up at 5:30 this day. It came from the same centre, an easier trek to visit the Quitondo group. 8 different gorillas today and a 5-day-old baby. Walking was a lot easier to do this. Lots of flies around these. Some gorilla facts: they're elusive, endangered, only found in Rwanda, Uganda, and the Congo. Live in forest mountain slopes, about 1,000 remaining. So at the time we were out there in 2016. They're shy but can be very aggressive, and they beat their chest when they're angry. They can live up to 35 years old and stand 4 to 6 feet high if they stand on the rear legs. They walk on all 4s generally and about 3 foot tall. And they weigh about 20 stone, the big ones. And each of the groups is led by this silverback, which you've just seen a video of. Can you see the baby underneath this mother? Can you see the baby there? So, like I said, they normally, the young babies, they normally cling to the mother's chest and just to walk along, they're underneath. But when they get a bit older, they jump on the backs of the grown-ups and what have you. And here's a youngster. This one's about 18 months old. And I say, while the grown-ups are eating and having their kip, they just muck around and play around, just like our own kids do.
Irvin, tell them about this one that it went up the tree.
Well, if you just hang on a minute. Yeah, because these South Koreans were getting on our nerves a little bit. Our guide could tell we were getting a bit annoyed with them because they were just walking in front of us when we were trying to take photographs. So he said, "Come with me," and we went round the corner, and here was this youngster climbing up the tree and what have you. So Pam and I had this excitement to ourselves. So that it was worth seeing that. Lovely creatures. So these most of the animals that you can get to see from the Rwanda side, but there are also some in Uganda and in the Congo. But it's a long trek to get to them, much harder walking. So the Rwanda experience was a much better one for us oldies. Incidentally, now they are restricting the number of people that can actually go on these tours. So we were very lucky. We were probably one of the last people where they had unfettered access to them. But they have restricted access to go and see the gorillas now. This is just to conserve them and hopefully build up the numbers. So that was the gorillas. We did 3 days trekking, all told. Absolutely fantastic. The guides were wonderful and very experienced and looked after us. The porters, they were absolutely essential to help us carry our stuff and help us walk up the difficult paths. We also travelled right down to the bottom southwest corner of Rwanda, past Lake Kuru, which is interesting in itself. It's one of the largest lakes in Africa and also the deepest. And it's an accident waiting to happen because there's millions and millions of cubic meters of methane trapped in the bottom. It only needs something to disrupt that, like a landslide, something like that, and it could be a big disaster. Methane is poisonous, as you know. So yeah, we ended up on a tea plantation with a beautiful hotel and this fantastic infinity pool. And it was the time in February when the Rotary Swim Marathon was going. So Pam and I actually did our Rotary Swim Marathon in this beautiful infinity pool in Rwanda. So that was, we saw some more monkeys down there and had a good tour of the country. And we had a thoroughly enjoyable experience. So I'll finish that there now and stop sharing my screen. And if you want to unmute yourself, and Pam and I are quite happy to take questions. Kevin Hay.
Did you experience any kind of time where you felt they might get aggressive, or did you kind of have any fearful moments? Or
Not at all. I mean, we were advised just stand still and let them walk around you. I think Pam and I mostly did that, but as you can see, the old South Koreans, they were jumping about. And but no, there was never any time when we felt
Threatened, not threatened at all.
Yeah, not at all.
okay.
Irvin, with
Yeah.
their roughly 1,000 individuals, is it increasing or decreasing?
At the moment, they're increasing. I did actually Google that to find out about them, that they're slowly increasing. Obviously, the conservation, and they have a group of vets, certainly in the Rwandan side, who go and attend to them if they're sick and what have you. Park rangers are visiting the other groups as and when they can, and it's well organised, and it's as I say, they've cut down the number of tours that's going to visit them. There are 5 groups that's been habituated, which the general public are allowed to go and see. At least that's what it was in 2016.
And I don't know if you saw yesterday the BBC news, but Paul, the up-to-date is Paul Rusesbagana, who was the Hotel Rwanda hero, was tricked into flying to Burundi, and they hijacked the aircraft to Kigali, and he's now in prison with others by the president, being charged as the opposition.
Oh, is he? No, I didn't know that.
Doesn't look very good.
No, it's brutal, and I mean, there's this something similar going on in Somalia, isn't it, at the moment? And you think, I mean, it's only 30 years ago that all this genocide happened, and it's quite horrific that the people do that to themselves in this day and age. It's quite horrific.
Irvin?
Yes, Andy.
Yeah. Were you in the same areas that there was a famous program done by David Attenborough, and I always remember that that program where he was rolling around with the gorillas, actually cradling him in the program. It's stuck in my mind. Was that in the same area? Was it?
I don't know. It's certainly in the Parc National. It's certainly in those areas with the mountains, because that's the only place that they are. So it'd be one of those. I don't know which country it was in.
Yeah.
And there was a comedian went out there with and was with the gorillas quite a bit. But
John Bishop. It was John Bishop. Not this John Bishop.
John Bishop.
It was John Bishop, the comedian. Yes, I mean, he spent a lot of time with them, and I mean that wasn't that long ago, was it? That was a couple of years ago.
Wasn't Boris Johnson, was it?
What, the golden back
Comedian.
Yeah. No, it's I don't know the answer to that, but it's certainly it'd be in that locality for sure. But which country it was in, I don't know.
We did
Any
go to
more
a conservation project, didn't we?
Mhm.
Irvin?
Yeah,
We
yes,
went to
yes.
see a veterinary person and with his conservation work, so that was very interesting. But unfortunately, Irvin wasn't well. Yes, we had to go back. You had to go to bed with a hot water bottle. And we only had candles, and there was no electricity often at the lodge we stayed in. So you had a fire, and you could ask someone to bring you more wood for the fire. You had very basic facilities, but it was good that at least you had shelter and we weren't in a tent.
Good.
No, really interesting and lovely to see the gorillas, because they're amazing species. They really are. Has anybody got any more questions?
No.
No. So, Andre, would you like to give thanks to our speaker?
Well, I'll be delighted to, President. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, to Irvin and Pam that shared that wonderful experience, and seeing nature in the wild like that is a real privilege. And I think we've been entertained for the last half hour very well. It does give you a really good feel for what's going on. I don't know about the conservation now. Hopefully these animals are not being hunted for other reasons. But I'd like to thank and ask our members and guests to show their appreciation in the normal way. Thank you, Evan and Pam.
Thank you. Yes, it was wonderful. Really interesting.